Welcome to another episode of Dad's Gone Crypto. Welcome, Alex. It's awesome for you to join us here. I've been following you for quite a while on Twitter, and you're on an absolute blast building your social account and your NFT project, for which we really love to hear more about in the show. We'd like to start off with a little bit of a background, but also what we've been up to this week, and a little bit just to recap a little bit of what's going on in our personal lives. Ryan, would you like to start off, or do you want me to?
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah. It was kind of a little busy weekend. We had St. Patrick's Day, so a few buddies dropped by and ended up drinking too much beer, of course. Then, Saturday night, we all went and saw a comedian who was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if you ever heard of him, Brad Williams, but he's a dwarf, and he is one of the funniest comedians I think I've ever seen. He was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he spent Sunday recovering from Friday and Saturday, and it might be what destroyed my immune system, because I'm a little sniffly still today. Anyway, what about you guys?
I've been just in the... Oh, sorry, Mike, you go.
No, go ahead. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've just been in the grind zone. I find every weekend at the moment is like very much a working weekend. So it's been a very intense couple months to start the year, but I've been loving it.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's great of you to join it at early hours that it's for you right now. It's like 8:30 or something?
7:30 right now. Jumping in nice and early to start the day. I usually start around 6:30, so I always get in right nice and early. But yeah, really excited to start this one off.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, excellent. I had a pretty funny day actually. We just my wife decided to put up an offer for a house like a couple of hours ago, and we were a little bit under pressure because the realtor, we were looking at a house, and the realtor called that someone else put up an offer, but we were still waiting for the construction report. So that wasn't in yet. So we kind of got. My wife felt the pressure a little bit, and she's the adventurous types of the two of us. So she said, "Well, just fuck it, let's just put up an offer." I said, "Okay, just do it, and we'll see. We'll manage." So let's see how that turns out in the morning or in the next couple of years. So perhaps I'm moving, guys.
All right. Does the new place have a man cave, I hope?
Oh, it sure will have one.
Excellent.
Definitely. Yeah, I need to escape the gremlins a little bit to work, so and need a home office for sure. Yeah, but other than that, we just launched our Telegram chat, and I've been busy working that a little bit, get the bot set up, etc. So it's quite a day today. But yeah, Alex.
Yeah, so all you people out there on YouTube, join our Telegram.
Exactly, join our Telegram.
The link will be in the description there. So.
But yeah, Alex, it's great to have you on the show, and I've been following you for a while, like I said earlier, and you're building your social channels like a maniac, like crazy, and it sometimes feels like you're trailblazing a little bit. Your growth is so crazy. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's been a crazy week in particular. I've very much lived a moment of when preparation meets opportunity. So I've written like 150 threads in the past 8 or so months. And all of that work started to help me realize what captures attention and like what people don't really care about, or what kills a thread versus what makes a thread blow up. And this has been my main source of growth recently. And then as soon as GPT-4 came out, it was just, for me, I was like, okay, this is the moment to very much attack. And so I just went into attack mode for 3 days straight, just going as aggressively on GPT as I could. And it was crazy. In the past week, I've had more growth than I've gotten in like a 3-month period. So I got like 7,000 new followers on Twitter. I'm now approaching, I think I just crossed 28,000, which has been really insane. And the big thing for me is that it's just always been such a focus of how can I grow my profile so that I have a larger audience to share my NFT project. That's the only thing I care about. I think for us in this bear market that we've been experiencing with all these other projects and all these founder controversies and all these things that have been popping up, we've been like, how can we show that we're the team that shows up every single day? And the way to do that is to just get more attention on the project. And the way to do that is to get out there and really build up that social channel, particularly through Twitter, and that trust. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been showing up every single day, threads for growth, videos for developing relationships with the audience, and then compiling on top of that as well, like a newsletter and daily Twitter spaces. And I've just basically been putting in those hours, spend like 6 or so hours at least just on the social stuff, let alone the work each day. And it's really nice that in the past week, it's felt like it's finally started to pay off. And now we're getting some serious momentum behind us.
So how are you integrating GPT-4 into what you're doing there on Twitter?
Yeah, John's funny. I'm actually like, as a for a lot of people that are not content creators, they see GPT-4 and they go, wow, this thing can write a Twitter thread for me. This thing can write a piece of content for me. And they think it works well. But as someone that I've now gotten to a point that I feel really confident that I understand the nuance of what makes a thread perform well versus what makes one just kind of unemotional and a bit static. And even the information, like it's more about the pacing of the content than anything. And GPT just still doesn't understand pacing and storytelling and interest. Like it can create a narrative, but that narrative is not something that someone wants to follow. So for me, for storytelling and threat and content creation, I've found it basically useless. But where it's become very useful is in summarization. So it's really useful for taking a massive article and saying, give me the 4 key points out of this, or take what are actionable ways that entrepreneurs can use information from this giant article. It's great for synthesizing information. I use it more as a research tool than anything. But it's still just so limited in what it can do for creating quality content. I get people reaching out to me every day that are like, hey, Alex, can you check out this thread? Where did I go wrong? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like the whole thread is flat. Even if it sounds good, I'm like, it's just flat. It's 7 things you can do. Thing number 1, thing number 2, thing number 3, thing number 4. Like and retweet my thread. And I always ask, I'm like, did you write this with GPT? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's the problem.
Right.
Because GPT just doesn't pick up on, I wrote a thread yesterday about creating content. You want to create wow moments in your content, which is the little thing where if someone read the thread, there's 2 things in there where they're like, whoa, I didn't know that. Or whoa, that I've never seen it put like that before. And GPT will never do, as in it will do that. But right now for you, it just won't do that.
Right. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, definitely. That's funny that you mentioned that, how the nuances, because I've been saving some threads that I like or that I find very interesting, or where I find, I want to look at this one again later. And instead of just solely looking at the content that's being shared, because we want to, on our Twitter feed, provide threads as well with actual value in there, or entertaining value. And then I go back to those threads, just like you mentioned, what piqued my interest in this particular one. And to be honest, I haven't been able to pinpoint it yet of
It's
those
hard,
threads,
right?
which I like. It's very hard, yeah. Yeah, so it's I'll get to the analysis of the threads more for sure.
You know, we usually like to delve into our guests, their background a little bit before, you know, Web3 and what they're currently doing. Can you give us a little bit of background on you and who you are and what what got you into Web3?
Yeah, so my name's Alex, for anyone that hasn't come across my work before. I've been in Web3 for about 8 years now, which is basically my entire adult life. From the moment I left school, I was into app building, and then I came across blockchain, and I was like, okay, there is so much more opportunity here than the hyper-saturated 2014 app market. And so I dived all the way in. I was just so excited about it because it seemed like it was this thing that had this was blockchain, by the way. Like, this was not it was not called Web3. There was no NFTs. It was, most people were focusing on Bitcoin as a use case, and I was obsessed with everything else that blockchain could do, because it just felt like this thing that was so disruptive, and there was so much opportunity in, but no one was communicating it well. It was literally just being spoken about by engineers that would say, I didn't even know what the word ledger meant. Like I'm an 18-year-old at this point, right? Like, and I'm like, they're talking about like double spending and ledgers and wrapping transactions in a block and adding it to a chain with hashes, and I have no idea what any of this means, and neither does anyone else. But it was, what really piqued my interest was the use cases that were already emerging at that point. So we were seeing things like supply chains were already starting to evolve onto the blockchain. So people were tracking livestock, wine, all those sorts of things. Like, was the wine temperature controlled when it was transported? Blah, 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 blah. All these sorts of interesting use cases. There's also an artist called Imogen Heap who was exploring how she could put her music on the blockchain and like have different royalty setups based around like how it was being used, and you'd pay her with crypto. It was kind of like one of the originals. We're starting to see, like, I think Blau has a marketplace called Royal where people can like invest in musicians. Like, we were already seeing that like back then. And that, I think that was around like 2015, 2016 when those use cases were starting to emerge. And so I was so excited by all the things that I felt like I could build. But the thing that I think no 18 or 19-year-old thinks of themselves is that I just was not experienced enough to know how to pull off those sorts of things. I actually have a lot of love for a lot of creators that I see in the ecosystem now emerging that I can tell have like a really big idea that they're really excited about, but just there's a big knowledge gap to pull it off. And for those people, I just say, just do it anyway. Like, just like keep going, because like I wouldn't have been able to figure out any of how to run an NFT project, or even how to launch one, or how to program one, or how to manage people, or any of that, if I didn't do a bunch of things before that I just was never qualified to do, and just push myself to do anyway. Fast forward. So my background, to give you more the dilated time scale, is like entered Web3 as a hobbyist, became an investor, got my first job as an internship, and ended up working in a clean energy company, for blockchain clean energy company, for about 4 years. And then it was right around 2021 when I bought my first NBA Top Shot that I fell in love with NFTs. And I was like, oh, I get it. This is like how blockchain and culture intersect. Like, I'd grown up as a sneaker collector my entire life, and I played Pokemon. I bought every Fortnite skin. When I played World of Warcraft, I was collecting like mounts, which are the things that you ride. I was the digital collector guy like throughout my life. It just wasn't an NFT. So when I bought my first Top Shot, I was like, I get it. And then for me, it was just like, okay, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I started experimenting on a bunch of side projects once again, like, which I think is the best way to get into anything. And I started doing some consulting work and some joint venture work as well. So I consulted to some massive brands and worked with brands like the NBA, for example, through this company called Playground Studios on a joint venture to create like fractionalized memorabilia on the blockchain, which was something I was really, really excited about. It was like taking an unattainable piece of memorabilia like Giannis Antetokounmpo's championship jersey, which might cost like $500,000, and letting people own like a fraction of it. And this was before Logan Paul's liquid marketplace and all these other royalty mechanisms. And it was just through building a bunch of things like that in early prototype stages and doing consulting work to brands all across the world that I learned how to build an NFT. And then from that, I was able to launch my project Bricktopians with my co-founder Law Degree, who's the artist behind everything that we do. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey ever since. Now I am the lead on that project, and it's my baby, and something that we continue to grow every single day.
Very cool.
Wow,
so
that's great. It's quite a journey, man.
Yeah, right. So, Alex, it sounds like Bricktopians is your passion right now. Can you explain Bricktopians to our audience? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, 100%. So Bricktopians is not just my passion right now. It's like my permanent passion. It's now my life's mission to continue to create awesome things for the people that have supported our mission to create something disruptive in the Web3 space. So the TLDR on Bricktopians, it's a really hard one to explain without showing the visual, but we were one of the world's first entirely moving collections, and to this day we're, I think, the only project where every single NFT moves in a unique way. So all the NFTs have their own physics simulations. They all behave differently based on the bricks that they are made out of. And for anyone that is wondering what I'm talking about, just imagine a head made out of a very famous toy brick that you grew up with as a child, blowing up, coming back together, being look like it's been put in a washing machine, getting the earth shattered through its head like a meteor. It's definitely one you have to check out in a visual way. And yeah, so that the foundation that we started upon was we just asked ourselves, like, what is the highest quality collection that we could possibly create, and could we create it? And so that's what we did. And to create our collection, like if you were to make it on a laptop, it would take you 10 years to load every single NFT, like just to make them. So if you, yeah, like the computing power, even on my MacBook Pro that I'm on right now, you would not be able to get it done for 10 years. Whereas what we had to do is we had to work with a team here in Melbourne to set up, there's these things called render farms, which are like, oh, you upload your file and it loads it to some place in Paris and it comes out the other side. You can't do that with what we were doing with Bricktopians. You needed like a full pipeline and like an absolute army of graphics cards to actually pull this off. And even from the moment we pressed start to the moment we got the final product, and think of like a supercomputer, like an entire room of graphics cards pointed at an NFT collection, and it still took 5 weeks of just loading time to load the collection. And so now we stand upon something that we just like, we're like, let's build something that will never be replicated. And to now, the more I look back on it, I'm like, why would anyone go to this sort of effort to create something like this? So we've created something that we know will never be replicated ever again in the space. And that was just because we saw
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that was just because
Would you say the intrinsic value of those NFTs is at the bare minimum just the amount of ETH that you could have mined with those graphic cards?
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. Someone pointed it out the other day on a space. They're like, so what you're telling me is you're the first proof of work NFT collection, which I found pretty funny. Yeah, I like that one.
Actually, that's a good point,
I'm
actually.
Use that.
Right.
It was a great line. I loved it. I was like, your words, not mine. But yeah, so that's a really fun way to put it. But it's like the moat that we are guarded by is just how incredibly hard it is to pull off. Even just things like debugging, right? Like we can't watch 10,000 videos. So we need to be confident that I don't know what 10,000 times 10 second is. I'd never do public math, but it's a long time to watch every video. And just, yeah, so even just things like debugging to be able to identify where there are issues, because naturally when you're rendering things like that, it's crazy. So shout out to our team that pulled that off. That was amazing. And that was where we started, and that's kind of like the foundation that we're built upon. But the big thing is that for us, we're deflationary at our core. So we made every single NFT, like when the trend was moving towards, let's make a second collection and let's drop a coin and then let's make a third collection. Let's do all these things that dilute the ecosystem. We were all focused on consolidation. So what we did was we built an incentive architecture where people could burn one NFT to upgrade another. And everyone loved this so much that 1,500 Bricktopians have been burnt. And I just opened it, like we had it closed for like 8 months. I just opened it again the other day for just a little bit. And we've now had another 200 Bricktopians that are locked in the smart contract ready to be burnt. So this is like a mechanism that we built. What I would call it is like true utility, right? Like where people actually want the thing to use the thing for the thing. Like they're excited by what we've created and they want to participate in it. And even though it creates an upgrade in rarity, what's really cool is people are just most excited by the outcomes on the other side because we've programmed it. So you know that like supercomputer engine, we've created a virtual machine. So this all happens in real time. So when people burn, they upgrade, the machine cooks a new one and recreates their character with new trades. That all happens in real time. I don't touch a single thing. It's all automated and always has been, which has been really, really cool. And that in itself was just a stupidly complex thing to build and something that I did not anticipate how hard it would be at first, but we're pretty proud of that as like, once again, like making sure that we don't rest on our laurels and we push the limits a little bit in what we create. And then I'm going to have to, wait, Ryan, can you see me again? Because
no,
if not, you're going to miss out. Okay.
That's okay.
I'm going to show you something. Give me 12 seconds, Mike. Entertain Ryan for a second, and I'm going to show you guys something. And this is what we're building next. So this is...
Oh, I've seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I couldn't have the mic. Oh, no, maybe I can. Yeah, so this is the Brain Boot. So this is a fully 3D printed sneaker that we've spent like the better half of a year and a half on. And we've literally, like, we're using a 3D printing method that no one in the space is using, which is kind of crazy because my co-founder, he's got like ruthless, he's got a ruthless perspective when it comes to creating what he wants. And he, as an artist, he has a vision. It has to be executed exactly in the way that he planned. And we started this journey of making a sneaker. And then we started 3D printing prototypes and we were like, what if you could 3D print every sneaker? That would mean you could make one of ones. You could make the physical match the digital. You could do all these exciting things that we love in Web3. You could make collaborative shoes with other collections. All these amazing things. And we were just like, okay, so instead of making shoes the normal way, we have to 3D print them. But how are people 3D printing shoes? And we found out that the ones that look good are not wearable, and the ones that are wearable do not look good. And so as soon as we started going down that rabbit hole, we're like, there has to be another way. There has to be other methodologies or technologies that we can use. Went down the rabbit hole of going through every leading 3D printing company, manufacturer, machine maker in the world. And we literally had a phone call with every single one of them until we found our secret sauce. And now we're using a technology that is, the machines themselves cost like $500,000. Thankfully, we don't have to buy them and manage them ourselves, but they're crazy advanced and crazy, super, super new. And yeah, now that's our next piece of the puzzle that we're releasing in our ecosystem. And what's really cool is all I care about is rewarding our brick holders. And so with the deflation mindset at the core, what we're doing is we're making it so that you can burn a Bricktopian to buy the shoe if you don't want to actually pay money for the shoe. And that's way cheaper than just buying it. And so that means that people can burn their bricks to get them. People who want in can get a discount by buying a brick and burning it. And it just supports the ecosystem in a way that we're really happy with. So yeah, that's kind of the background of our project and how we do things, which is really cool.
Very cool. Can people still buy bricks, or is it on the secondary market now?
Yeah, so it's on the secondary market. We launched about a year and a half ago. And we sold out in 90 seconds when we did our first mint in November, which was awesome. Yeah, and we've got like a really strong core community of people that I'm really proud to represent and get to hang out with every single day.
That's fantastic.
Wow, that's really insane. I've been looking at Bricktopians on your Twitter feed as well, and just like you mentioned in the creation of that, and when I look at in like NFT projects or NFT collections in general, it's like either the art is very good or a good standard, or the utility is great. But what you guys are doing is really impressive. Like the art style of every unique Bricktopian is very cool, but I think, like you mentioned, the animation is unique as well, and I haven't seen that before. I think this is really impressive, and I like the shoe. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, we're really excited about the shoe. It's fun because it's like you get stopped really in the street when you wear them.
What is the material you're 3D printing that out of?
So it's made out of TPU, which is the same thing that shoe soles are made out of, which is really easy and convenient for making a shoe. And then we just vary the density with like an internal lattice structure, but not like the normal lattices that we've seen in like other 3D printed shoes. We use something a little bit different that we found. It's just a bit nicer, a bit springier. So it's something that's unique to our brand. And it's funny, we're actually unveiling a new logo next month, and it's literally made out of the cushioning system that makes our shoe possible, because we're just so proud of it.
That's really cool.
Wow, that's cool. Next step is getting an NBA player to play in it, right?
Well, it's funny you say that. We've got I met Tyrese Halliburton, who plays for the Pacers, at Ape Fest, and he was really excited by it when I showed him in person, because he wore his gutter cat and his Bored Ape, I believe, on an NBA court, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, like get me a pair of these." So definitely gonna be hitting up.
That's
a few
so
of them.
cool.
That's fantastic.
Wow, that's really cool. So, Alex, you mentioned earlier in the recording that you built your social media presence basically to support the Bricktopians NFT project. Could you share some insight in how you've built that and some of the secret tips in there?
Yeah, 100%. So the biggest thing for building a social media presence, and by the way, for anyone that thinks like I have some like secret sauce or I'm an expert at this stuff, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally started blank. My threads sucked. I think my first 30 threads got about 20 likes each. And that's as someone who has a community who will pat him on the back. So it was just all it was like your mum liking your thread. Like it was just all my community members being like, "Hey Alex, nice thread." So like if I didn't have an NFT community, it would have been like probably like 4 likes per thread. But the thing I've just found, and I don't see enough of with emerging creators, is it really comes down to, at the beginning, I think for everyone, it comes down to volume. So you're so much better off making more content that you are not 100% happy with than you are posting once a week with something that you think is like the best piece of content you've ever written, and this is going to be the one. And I say that for a couple reasons. Number one is, even for me, like it feels so bad. I try to not focus on the engagement. I really preach don't focus on the engagement, but it feels really bad when you've put extra effort into a thread. Like you're like, this is the one. Like I've really killed it on this one, and it doesn't perform well. And you go, like you might have like spent, I've had threads that I've spent like 10 hours on and like being like, yep, this is the one. I know this is the one. This what's going to be what blows up. and it gets no engagement, and you stop and ask yourself, you're like, is thread writing for me? Is this even like a good idea? Meanwhile, the GPT threads I wrote that got me all those followers super quickly took me about 25 minutes each to write, right? And there's like an inverse correlation between effort and outcome. But what I've found is that volume does two things. Number one, it's volume with the deliberate decision to try and improve a little bit each time. So it might be like, what did I do wrong last time? Okay, I wrote in bulky paragraphs. I should cut that up a little bit. I'm just going to do that this thread. Then the next one, I feel like my first tweet, the hook, could be a bit better. I'm going to finish the thread and I'm going to go back and rewrite the hook a couple times. Then the next thread, you're like, all right, I did the last thread in 16 tweets, which most people do when they're starting out. They like over explain. It's like, all right, I'm going to try and do this one in 12 tweets. Like, I'm going to take the 16 tweet thread that I wrote and I'm going to cut it down. It's funny, like, I'm actually working on rewriting a thread that I wrote like 4 or 5 months ago about like how I make decisions about when to buy and sell ETH. And I'm looking back on that thread, which at the time I was like, man, this is like knowledge gems. This is so good. This is such a great thread. I look back on it, I'm like, wow, you really just like explain the same thing for 3 whole tweets. You could have gotten that done in 1 tweet. Or like you're using hashtags like crazy, and it kind of like ruined the trustworthiness of the thread, and like all these little nuances that after 100 plus threads, you like slowly iron out. So for anyone starting out, whether it be making videos, writing threads, doing anything that's going to lead to growth, always just focus on volume at the beginning, and also volume's really good because if like I challenged myself to write 100 threads in 100 days. That's how this all kind of kicked off. And what happens is when you need to write a thread every day, you suddenly you're like, I don't know what to write about. So you experiment and you try new things, and you also don't write 16 tweet threads. You write 8 tweet threads or 10 tweet threads or 6 tweet threads. And suddenly it's like, oh wow, my content's punchier. I found new things that I wouldn't have tried otherwise. Like the audience wants this from me, not this from me. You pick up on all these nuances, and now I'm starting to get literally only recently. So I'm at like, I think as of recording, about 28,000 followers. I'm only now starting to feel like I'm getting a little bit of a nuance for what the audience wants. But even still, I write a lot of threads that just miss and like don't really go anywhere. So volume until you're like exhausted from it. Honestly, like 100. And then that's when you'd probably switch to more of okay, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on this now. Now I'm going to do more of like a learning approach, which is like, I'm really going to either like spend 2 days on a thread, or I'm going to like I caught up with Whale Swoosh, who's a close friend of mine now. And when I saw him coming up, I was on like 17K followers at the time. He was on like 9K. And I was just looking at him. I was like, oh, this guy's next up. Like this dude he's absolutely killing it. And it was so clear to me, but like you were saying, Mike, I couldn't reverse engineer what made his threads so good. Like I knew they were good intuitively, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So I just caught up with him, and we jumped on a call, and it was a really nice catch up. And I just like tried to understand his research process and the way he thinks about writing a thread. And it was just like small things, like how he said, like, I just try to include graphics and GIFs to keep the reader engaged. And I was like, okay, like that's interesting. And so I just started doing that. It's like, bang, my engagement like doubled. And you do all, but even now I'm experimenting with that. And sometimes you find you force it in, and you got to learn the nuances once again. But you can only get to a point of like doing like small tweaks that lead to massive impacts once you have like a strong understanding of what the audience wants. Because to bring it back to over engineering or overthinking a thread, if you spend a week on a thread and you're so excited to post it, you probably more often than not have written it like an essay, and it's not going to go well, because you're like, I've written this like dissertation that is so well thought out, and it is going to be like, I would get an A on this assignment. I've killed it. But it's like, that's not what the audience rewards. The audience rewards how quickly and conveniently you can get information to them, plus give a little emotional spikes and have like a good story arc. Like most of my threads go like this. This is what happened. This is what people are saying about it. This is what I think. Like, it's like you can kind of like follow that arc if you're covering a story, for example. And most people just miss the arc. They're like over laboring it. They're writing an essay. It's got 3 parts in it. They've called out part 1, part 2, part 3. They've got a big conclusion that goes for 4 tweets. Don't do that. Just keep it punchy, do high volume, and you'll eventually pick up the nuance. But the big thing for anyone that's starting out is that 6 months is not a lot of time. It sounds like a lot of time, but 6 months arrives. Is what I've learned. Is like
we got
like
kids, man. So the time flies.
So
we know,
it's like, it's like if you can commit to 6 months and just think of it like college for like creating content, and you're like, I don't care about the engagement, but I have to create like this much each week or each day. I'm going to commit to that no matter what, because that's what I did. I was like, I don't care about the engagement. I'm writing 100 threads, and at the end of 100, I'll decide if this is a worthwhile exercise or not. And it was like literally by like the 60th that I started to get any form of engagement. But for anyone that's listening to this, that's getting into content, I just say like, just commit to 6 months where you don't care, but you're going to be consistent. And then you will naturally start to pick up on the nuances. And then after 6 months, you can start to look at it more from a growth perspective.
Yeah. And would you say if you do high volume, that that's the assumption that I have right now, is that you come across more genuine and the content is more raw rather than what you said, you write out a whole essay, etc. So people can relate better to that. Is that, did I understand correctly?
Yeah, you break down your own walls. Like you're like, oh snap, I have like family dinner tonight. I've got to pick up the kids and I still have to get a thread out. Like, and you'll find like that you just sit down, you're like, all right, I'm timing myself. I'm giving myself 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And I saw this interesting thing today and I'm just going to give my opinion on it. And what will happen is you'll speak like a human. You will share your like genuine thoughts on something. You'll do like, it'll just come off so much better. And also what I've noticed is that the community rewards consistency because they start to learn who you are and they like you for you. Like only in the past maybe 2 weeks I've noticed that the same people are turning up because they like the threads and then they turn their notifications on, or then when your stuff comes up, you're the person that they like. Look, there's a lot of threads on Twitter, but I've enjoyed Alex's every time, so I'm actually going to stop and read this one. Like you actually build a brand. I noticed this with Whale. I think he's got the strongest brand in the space, and that's just like literally he's posting at the same times. He's got a clear perspective on everything, and now when he posts, he gets like 100 likes in the first minute on his thread. No one's read a thread in a minute, but they're excited. That's them saying, I'm excited to read this. I know what this person is going to say. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the great thing about volume is you do break down your walls and then you get incremental growth that you are not even noticing that you're getting.
Absolutely. So you spend a ton of time writing threads. You also have a newsletter, correct, that you put out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain your newsletter? Talk about the importance of that?
Yeah, 100%. So I noticed something last year when I was listening to Mr. Beast Manager on this YouTube podcast called The Colin and Samir Show, where they talk about like the creator economy. And he was talking about how on TikTok, people with 1 million followers can't start a business, let's say. But on Twitch, people with 1,000 active users can create these massive businesses out of them and lifestyles and like an actual functioning thing. And the reason is because of depth. And Twitter is very shallow. TikTok is very shallow. Twitter is kind of equally shallow. You only see a tweet for a moment. It's ephemeral. It's in a sea of other tweets. It doesn't you build a bit of a brand, but you don't really ever connect with anyone. I don't think I could tweet out like buy a Bricktopian and it's really going to do anything. Like I don't think that would ever work as a strategy. Whereas a newsletter, it allows me to do two things. One, something I'm really driven by is early in my journey, I didn't have really anyone to mentor me and help me like understand like, oh, there's a fire over there. Don't, when your ETH is killing it, buy a bunch, like swap it into Ripple and see what happens. Like do all, like, you know what I mean? Like all the early Web3 mistakes that we make, but as well as like just how to start a business in this space. I didn't have anyone like that because it was brand new. The space was literally brand new. So I always wanted to create content that helps people like leapfrog my journey and just get there quicker. And so my newsletter has been very centered on, from a content perspective, going deeper. The threads are great, but I have to also write the threads in a way that's going to capture attention, which means I have to play like two sides at the same time. I can't really give the full value. Whereas in a newsletter, I can go deeper on a topic. I can actually, like where I want to, I can thoroughly explain something. Whereas if something else just requires like a, hey, and I found this interesting, by the way, like I can put that in there as well. Whereas if I did that on a thread, imagine I wrote a thread and I was like, hey, this is how I got a bunch of followers. By the way, you should listen to this podcast. Oh, and also here's what I'm doing with my project Bricktopians. Be like, everyone would be like, I don't want to read that. So the newsletter is an awesome opportunity for me to go deeper on giving value. And then it's really cool because I can share a bit of the behind the scenes of how we're building Bricktopians, which is kind of like the way I like to share that story. I don't like to purely go out and just say like, hey, buy my thing. I like to always give value as much as possible and then say, hey, by the way, I'm building this. If you want to be a part of my world, come and buy a Bricktopian and let me build for you. And I found that the newsletters, actually, the goal of it was to be a funnel. Like to create that value, but also lead into Bricktopians because I want every work that I do to complement that mission of growing bricks. And what's great is it has been perfect for that. Every week, I think we've been getting new buyers into the ecosystem, people that I didn't know before, which is really cool. And all of them always say it's like, hey, I've really gotten a lot of value out of your newsletter. I just wanted to join and I appreciate you showing up every day. So the newsletter has been a great part of that. It's been an absolute challenge to write. It has been the hardest thing because I hate that I do this, but I've been posting it on a Friday, Melbourne time. Like I'll be writing. I think I've been up writing at 1 a.m. for the past like four Fridays. Every week I find that that's the case because it's like, during the week, it just never makes sense to make time and priority for the newsletter when there's so many things going on. But the thing about a weekly newsletter is it has to stay consistent. That's the point of it. So it is a challenging thing to start. But if anyone is a creator wanting to create a career in this space, like already I'm starting to get offers for sponsorship. And that was not the original goal with putting out a newsletter. But it's just so clear to me that most creators can start like either a side hustle or transition it to replace their current income with a year of work in growing an audience and then growing a newsletter.
Oh yeah, that's what I was just wondering because you used it. It's very helpful for Bricktopians and diving deep into some content. But I was just wondering if you would recommend it for content creators in general that aren't doing that stuff. But you just basically answered that it for long term it can provide immense value. I imagine.
Yeah, my pro tip with that is that I think if I was to suggest anyone else to do this, try and make a format that's pretty concise and easy to make each week. Mine, I'm a sucker for punishment, and where I was saying don't write don't write essays in threads, I definitely do in the newsletter. I'm like, no, I want to go all the way on this idea. And then I end up doing four segments where I do that, and by the end of it I'm like, I've literally written more than what I would for a university assignment on this thing. When the plan was always, and here's some growth hacks and here's some stuff and here's whatever, and I'm like, that's not actionable, someone's not going to be able to use that, I need to explain it. But there's great newsletters like 5 Bullet Fridays by Tim Ferriss, which is just 5 things he found interesting during the week. I think James Clear has his 3-2-1, which is like, I'm not subscribed to it, but I've heard of it. But just for example, I think it's like 3 quotes, 2 things he's pondering, and 1 like question to leave you with, like an equivalent to that. And he said it takes him an hour to write each week. And that's really just formatting, because throughout the week he's got like his categories and he's just filling them, and it becomes really easy. I would recommend anyone that's starting a newsletter to start something like that. That is definitely, like, if you don't have a lot of time, do a format that is a little bit punchier and easier to pump out.
Right. Where do you find the inspiration for your newsletters? Sounds I think it'd be tough to find something to write about every week like that.
Yeah, I felt really like happy when I watched this this YouTube podcast the other day about newsletter writing. There's this guy, I've forgotten his name, but he has like 30,000 subscribers, and he was describing his process, and it was that he's like, yeah, I've got like 40 ideas written in a document, and then every week I go to that document and all the ideas look stale and like they suck, and then I panic, and then I go on Twitter for a bit, and then something just like triggers an idea in my brain, and then I'll just go, all right, that's it. I'm going to pump this thing out and I'm going to start writing. And my process is a little bit like that as well. I have all these things that I've got banked up that worst case scenario I could write about. And they felt like good ideas at the time, but I always find it's actually really hard to go back to an idea and continue the same inspiration thread that you once had. So like when I used to write Twitter threads, I used to have like a bank of ideas. When I used to write one a day, I used to have like a bank of ideas where I was like, great, I can pick one off the shelf, and I would use that. But now, whether it be threads or newsletter, I kind of just sit down and it comes to me a little bit. Usually it'll be related to something a lot of people have asked me about throughout the week. So like this was an example of a thread, but I just had so many people asking me for a job, and I was like, okay, it's clearly like an appetite for understanding how to get a job in Web3. Like that's something I can write about from the perspective of the person who hires. Like, this is what we look for. This is the way I think about it. This is why I don't hire off a cold DM, because this isn't my company. This is a community of people I'm responsible for. And if I hire someone that I don't fully know or trust and they make a mistake, it's not just on me, it's on the community. And there's all these sorts of things that play into that decision that I think a lot of people don't get the perspective on. So the newsletter is called Grow Faster, and the reason I called it that is it's centered on a philosophy that I just think that every single person can create leverage for themselves through content, through having a small business that's consistent, whether it be a newsletter, a licensing business, all these things that I've articulated in it. And so the whole newsletter is centered around, like, here's a business model you can go after, and here's how to grow your audience, like using the methods that I have that have worked for me. And so by deep diving on that, I think it just makes it so much easier. It's like that mission of being the mentor for the person that doesn't have one, and using that 8 years of experience. And it's funny, writing every week sounds intimidating, but I reverse it, which is, do I have 52 things I can write about? And I definitely have 52 ideas that exist, right? And so it's like, okay, great. We can do this for a year then. Like we're all good on that front. And even within the newsletter, the thing I find challenging is that there's not a massive feedback loop, but I hope people like this, which is at the newsletter, I'm actually building the newsletter in public. So at the very bottom, I say, like, here's my growth from the past week. Here's my open rate. Here's, like, I got my first sponsorship offer this week. Here's what my short-term goals are. And I'm very transparent about them. And if I'm going well on those goals, and if I'm not going well, and the goal is that it's like, okay, so we're like 5 weeks into doing this newsletter, and I've got my first sponsorship call, I think, hopefully on Friday. And it's like the idea is that it's like, wow, I watched this guy Alex. He had like 1,300 subscribers when I joined this thing. Now he's at 2,000. Now he's gotten his first sponsorship offer. This is how much he made. This is like, I don't know if I can communicate that because it might ruin future opportunities. But yeah, like as much as I can share. And then it's like, oh, really? Like I could just build this. Like he just did this in like 5 weeks, and then hopefully 6 months from now, it's like, okay, well, I've just watched this thing be built in real time. Like, I'll just do that. Like, because to go full circle on it, the reason I think the newsletter is the best business that anyone can start is, such a cliche, but like anyone can start one. And you don't have to be good at the beginning. When you have 10 subscribers, who cares what the open rate is? Who cares what all those things are, like, right? Like you can experiment at that point. It's kind of like thread writing. Like at the beginning, it doesn't matter how good the content is. What matters is being consistent with it and improving it and asking your audience what they like and what they don't like, and being like really intimate about that. And then next thing you know, like people don't understand how high paying the CPMs of newsletters are. Like you can earn between like $50 and $100 as a crypto/Web3 newsletter per 1,000 people. And it's like, okay, cool. So like in my head, I just did the maths. I'm like, all right, let's call it 75. I'm like, okay, so if I get 1,000 subscribers, that's $75. If I get 2,000, that's $150. If I like, and you follow that journey, I'm like, I wonder if I could ever get this to cover my rent. Like that would be a cool, like small, like short-term goal, not short-term goal, right, but just absolutely. like as a project with it to prove the use case of what I'm sharing. It's like that's like an interesting project for me. And yeah, it's something, so I think anyone can do it. I think this is a brutal thing that I don't get to share enough, which is that I think for a lot of people at the beginning, most people just aren't good enough yet, and that's okay. I think like a lot of people want the result that they're seeing in another person really quickly. Like I've been like this my whole journey too. I see someone that's bigger than me, I'm like, like I write content as good as them. Why am I not there? I think we all do that. But I think, and I literally think anyone can do it as long as you're hungry to go on YouTube and look at how to write better newsletters, how to write better Twitter threads. You read guides, you read stories, you read people's threads on how to write threads. Like you do all these things, you take in that information every day and you write consistently, you'll be unstoppable.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's very powerful. I think that's also the reason I followed you, is that your quality threads, which I took value from, but also that you're building in public, because it's hard to. I think a lot of people can create like a quality thread or a quality content, but it's with a lot of large accounts or influencers, you might say. It's hard to gauge what their agenda is a little bit, or if they said, "Oh, I have built this," and it turns out that they had some kind of shortcut somewhere, or whatever. And I think that resonated very well with me personally. And I thought, okay, this is a cool guy, and I want to follow your journey basically. So that's pretty cool. But where does video tie in? So you're doing Twitter threads, you're building Bricktopians, doing newsletters, and I've seen videos as well.
Yeah, I'm a very exhausted person all the time. So it's really funny. Last night, I took some time out to just like find new music, right? And I was telling my partner about this, and she's like, "What? So you like finished work for the day and like did some stuff afterwards?" And I was like, and she's like, "And you didn't like finish work and go, I've finished my work for the day, so now I've got all this time to do all this other work that I never thought I'd have time to do," because that's normally the way I operate, because that's how hard it's been with like making all this content. But the biggest thing with video, it comes from a couple places, but I noticed that number one, no one makes video on Twitter. And when Elon said he was going to start to push video to the forefront, I thought everyone was going to start making video, and no one started making video. And I think if everyone else is going to be behind a PFP, putting a face out there creates such a deeper connection with your audience. And I've made a lot of lifelong friends through either videos that I've posted or occasionally if I've had like a really, I've found like after spaces, it's been really nice to just sometimes send a follow-up video, like a personal connection. Because I find like, yeah, like everyone sends like a, hey, that was a great space. It was so nice to meet you, like blah, blah, blah. But I'd be like, hey, like I got my friend, I'll call out someone like my friend Shiv. I was just like, hey, Shiv, like it's been so awesome to talk to you on the past like 5 spaces. Like we clearly have a lot of the same views and it's been really nice to connect. And I've just found that video is like a superpower. Like no one realizes how good it is for making those warmer connections. Like even us, like we've spent, how much better is it to spend an hour like having a conversation on here than it is to maybe go back and forth in the DMs. And so, yeah, so a big motivation was to connect deeply with the audience. Another one was I noticed when I went to NFT NYC, I saw K Money, who makes some great video content and some really entertaining Web3 video content. And there were all these NFT Twitter creators around. And I noticed every single one of them got ignored except K Money. Everyone knew who K Money was because he'd put his face out there. He'd been there on video.
Oh, yeah.
And that said to me, I was like, that was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, interesting. So you're telling me that these people feel like a friendship, like they felt like they knew K Money, like, and myself included. I went up to him. I was like, hey man, I love your videos. Like, I think what you're doing is so cool. I had to get like introduced to Vultura. Like I had to get like taken by the hand, like, and brought across the party and been like, that's him. And there's like 2 people, like, which one? Like that one. And, oh
wow. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the difference in those two, I think there's pros and cons. In Web3, I think a little bit of anonymity is really important when everyone is so responsible for, whether it be like I got to be really careful of, I don't even want to say it, like it's like saying Voldemort, but you got to be careful of like hacks, like because I'm a Web3 founder and like I never want like bad links posted from my account and things like that. You have to be really careful with your identity and your privacy in Web3. But I've just found there's so much benefit that comes from putting your face out there and connecting with people.
It makes a lot of sense what you mentioned. I think that's the reason why we wanted to put out video on Twitter as well. I think it's very cool, and I think after one of your videos that you actually mentioned that you were doing video just because it would be pushed by the algorithm more probably. I think that's when we started uploading videos directly onto Twitter, short snippets rather than just the outside YouTube link or TikTok link or whatever. And it makes a lot of sense if you mentioned that to connect with people. I think that's way easier as well. I can relate to that quite a bit. But say the average viewer for our show is wants to be active in Web3, wants to activate their Twitter account, doesn't necessarily want to do video or create a newsletter, and probably or might not be or think they're not that great at writing Twitter threads. Where's hope for them? What
yeah. So this is I give this advice a lot, and I've learned that it's really challenging for non-native English speakers. So in that category, I think my ability to help is limited. But for anyone that can speak English, go on Twitter Spaces. Go on as many Twitter Spaces as you possibly can and speak on all of them. You don't need... there are people that I know in Twitter Spaces who have like 4,000 followers and everyone knows who they are. They're invited to speak on Leap Spaces. They're active throughout the day. They are held with warm regard. Generally, Twitter Spaces I've found also leads to like really linear growth. From 0 to 10,000 followers, I was on Spaces like 4 hours a day, just because I found you get like 10 to 20 to 30 followers at a time each time you do one. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, so this is how I form deep connections with people. The types of people who follow me are the types of people who like what I have to say. And they are therefore going to be the same types of people who interact with my content. And a lot of people say, yeah, Alex, but I can get on a Twitter space. I don't really know what to talk about. I don't really have anything to say. Just ask questions. Like, literally ask questions. Go on a space. If someone is talking about like Amazon making a Web3 marketplace, which happened I think last week. It's funny how that feels like a really old news story. I'm pretty sure that happened last week. Anyway, but let's say that had just happened. There is no harm in going up and being like, so, hey guys, like today, do you guys see the thing about Amazon? Like, what's everyone's thoughts on that? And then just asking follow-up questions, right? Everyone can do that. Every single person can do that. And a hack, like if you really, really can't think of what to say, is go on the morning shows for Web3. They're going to cover the same news stories. Everyone's going to have all the same opinions. Write them all down. I found that if you go space to space, you just hear the same things over and over again. Yeah, I think it's great for Web3. It's going to get, like, using the Amazon use case, it's going to get 300 million people onboarded. Yeah, but those people probably aren't going to be the people who buy PFPs. Yeah, that's a good point, but at least we're getting more corporate experience and blah, blah. Like you get like all of those same opinions. You just write them all down and then just go to the next show and be the person to share that opinion. Like I've said, like I think for anyone
that's a hack, Alex.
that's a hack for anyone that doesn't know, because I learned that because I literally would go to the morning shows and then I'd go to the next show and I'd see the same person saying the same thing. And I'm like, oh, this person's going to ride this one opinion the whole day. Like that. But every person's like, wow, that's so insightful. Yeah. Like that's really interesting. So I think that's for anyone that's inexperienced. Like I'm lucky enough that I feel pretty confident to have my own takes in this stuff, which comes through my thread writing. But I think if you have absolutely like no strong opinions about anything, just go and absorb, form your own opinions, and then go to other spaces and kind of contribute in that way. But even if you don't have that up your sleeve, I think just asking questions is the best way to form relationships, because you'll naturally have follow-up questions.
That would be you, Ryan, because I'm a non-native speaker, so I'm exempt from...
What are you talking about? You're killing it, Mike. You're perfect.
Oh, come on, you're perfect. You're doing just fine.
Oh, shit. Back me up here, Alex.
You're doing just fine, buddy.
For the non-native speakers as well, there's a website called Spaces Dashboard, and it actually tells you which language a space is in. So there's generally, I've seen Nigerian spaces, I've seen French spaces, I've seen Chinese spaces, I've seen Spanish spaces. There is a space for everyone. You just need, if you only speak one language that is not English, you just need to keep an eye out for a little flag of which language it's in, and you'll be able to find a space for yourself as well.
Oh, that's cool.
See
That's
that,
spacesdashboard.com.
There's some Dutch spaces out there for you.
There's some hope for
that.
Yeah.
Spacesdashboard.com, and then click the NFT button at the top. Let me tell you, this thing is such a hack for me, because I go on basically like every single pitching space that I can possibly get on. I will jump into any space and I will share what we're doing with Bricktopians. And this Spaces dashboard is a absolute godsend. So use that, and like you might be able to see if you're on it right now, Mike, that there's flags, there's country flags. It tells you the language. And if I scroll down, most of them are in English by the looks of it right now, which kind of makes sense. It's like US time zone is peaking right now. I think a lot of those guys are having their afternoon spaces, but all the time, like, there's one in Arabic right now for anyone who speaks Arabic. So yeah, you can go on that website and you can find a space that works for you. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I'm using this. Let's see if there's
I've seen Dutch ones as well.
No Dutch ones going on. You've seen
Not right now, but I've seen them.
Not right now. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's excellent.
I'll be using this one, Ryan.
Yeah, fantastic. Throw that in the chat for me, Michael. So.
I will.
It's like my
We'll put a link in the
police
description there
scanner.
for other
I have
people,
it.
too.
Yeah, I have it like
Exactly,
open on
yeah.
a second monitor, and as soon as I see a share your project space, I'm like, all right, shut down everything. I'm going on that.
Oh, that's excellent.
I'm running this one down for sure.
So Alex, so we're always seeing accounts just grinding away, and they're putting out good quality content. We see you on there, sometimes commenting, because they're asking you, they're like, I'm putting out all this quality content, I'm grinding, but I'm not getting anywhere. And you're giving them the advice that just keep going. Somebody's going to pick you up eventually, and you're gonna pick up those followers. But so with that in mind, how do you set goals? How are you telling your followers to set goals? How do you set goals for yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I haven't fully figured out the answer because I oscillate between two mindsets. I switch in and out of things like engagement and followers being the goal and consistency being the goal. And I usually find I will switch to whichever the alternative of the one that is working right now. So I will. So right now I've been getting a lot of followers. Now all I care about is being consistent. Because I've been pretty good. I don't think I've really missed a thread. I get a thread out roughly every 2 days. I try to get 3 out a week. And I have been good with the consistency. But now that I feel like I've got a bit of a handle on what's working, I'm like, all right, let's be really disciplined about the schedule. Let's make sure we're not missing a video or a thread. And let's even ramp it up if we can. Whereas if I'm being really consistent and I'm not getting anywhere, I will find I might inverse that and go, okay, well, clearly what I'm doing right now is not working. Let's try and experiment on the next one. Let's add graphics, which is one of the things that I started doing. I was like, okay, I need to start taking graphics a little bit more seriously. This thread, I'm going to start creating graphics. Graphics has nothing to do with consistency. That's about me trying to grow the engagement of what I've created. So I find I flip back and forth all the time. People say don't focus on engagement, and I think that's correct for the most part, but you can't ignore things if they're not working. You need to ask yourself, okay, I've written 5 threads now in a row and none of them are working. Where might I be going wrong? With goal setting, just to round it out, I think 90% of the time the correct goal is consistency. How much did I get out this week? But if I am finding that I'm being really consistent and it's not working, I'll start to change the goal a little bit. So I'll make the goal, how much content did I get out this week? Sorry, not how much content did I get out this week. I'll make the goal I'm going to put graphics in every thread and see what happens. I'm going to spend an extra 20 minutes rewriting the hook and see what happens. And I'll actually care about tracking those stats.
Okay. So small goals along the way that can change, right? It makes sense. It's an ever-changing space. So.
Yeah. I've got one in front of me, which is actually get to 30K or 0.5 ETH for bricks. I like those 2 goals up there. I thought 30K would take a lot longer than this, so I got a lot of work to do on the brick front. Yeah, but I think it's cool to have North Stars. I do think there are tipping points along the way on a content journey, and I always just notice that people around 30K seem to get a lot of traction. So for me, that was a macro goal that I've had for a while. And now that I'm in it, I can't tell if it's a momentum thing or if it's an absolute thing, but I do think having the 5K, 10K, 15K, 20K, 30K goals are really healthy and helpful. I think they're not a bad thing. And anyone that says you're just doing this for followers, blah blah blah, it's no, you have to have that stuff to drive you. Otherwise, you'll just muddle around at a certain point. You'll just spend a lot of time doing stuff that doesn't really lead to anything.
Right. So your content goals kind of center around Octopians. What are your goals for the project itself?
Yeah, my goals for the year, this year, for me is to really, I really want to, I've been looking at what makes a project successful, and I think a project is only as successful as the people within it. Now, it's all well and good for Alex to have 100K followers and like be really actively pushing this and like whatever. I'd rather have like 500 people who have 5,000 followers. That's like 250,000 followers of reach and constant engagement. And I did do public math then, and I'm hoping that's correct. But that's 250,000 followers, or maybe 2.5 million if I'm off. That's 250,000 followers worth of people that are not me sharing and being active every single day. And so I really want to elevate the people within my community, so that they can, it really brings me a lot of joy when things are working for people. Like we've got a lot of people that have started to actively create content off the back of a lot of what I was doing. And I'm just like feeding them all the direct source, I'm like, this is what you need to do next, and this is how it can be better, and this is what can be improved. Because if they grow, we grow, and it's really, really important. And so at a community level goal, my goal is to get all these people to where they want to be as content creators, particularly the ones that are actively creating content. And the goal for us as like an organization is to transition into a sustainable revenue model that is supported through physical products, because the only projects that are going to survive are the ones that have an I'm not selling NFTs forever business model, or an I'm not relying on royalties forever business model. And so for me, it's all about transitioning us into a period where it's like the physical side is what supports the organization, and the digital side is more about rewarding our holders. And that's kind of the yin and yang of our ecosystem that I see us living throughout. And that's what I really want to create. So that getting to that point is the goal of this year. And we're not far off. Like the Brain Boot's come a long way. There's still improvements to be made, but we're very, very close to its release.
Very cool.
Very nice. And it seems that you set your goals a little bit for based on the future of the space, and because you mentioned, I'm not doing for the royalties, etc. It seems like you're creating some sort of infinity loop or yin and yang, like you mentioned. But if you tie your project or sculpt your project based on the future of the Web3, what's your vision on the future of Web3? Where are we going?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that we've heard 99% of projects will die out. I think 99.99% of projects will die out, because I think if we think about like how and why most projects launched, it's because there was an appetite for it in a market that was just absolutely feverish, and it wanted this. Like it wanted profile pictures as a digital identity, and we got a lot of them. What I think we're going to see is, I think we're going to see that for a select few projects that will remain. But I think those digital identities, for the most part, the ones that are around right now are luxury products, right? Like if we're being completely real about what it is, most people who are wearing a $20,000 PFP wouldn't would say, oh, a $500 jacket, that's ridiculous, and then wear like a $20,000 PFP, right? Like that. The reality is that PFP is like luxury fashion for the internet, and I think what we're going to see is more consumer fashion for the internet. So things like what Reddit has done, where a company goes, hey, there's this way you can digitally represent your alignment to our brand in a non like tens of thousands of dollar way. So it's like, there's no reason that, let's say Nike didn't have CloneX. There's no reason that Nike wouldn't go, hey, we're going to release 5 million PFPs, right? Like, why wouldn't they do that? Because they and give them for free with every pair of shoes. Like, it's not like you have to mint it and you're looking at it like an investment and you're doing all this. It's like, oh, I got this really rare pair of sneakers. Now I have a pair of PFP that you only get if you own the rare pair of sneakers. And so that's how people know online that I have this rare pair of sneakers. That's much more where I see the space going, is more consumer-centric identity being created. As a broader, in terms of broader use cases, I'm excited for things like physical tracking of physical assets. Obviously, that's what I care about with the sneaker. I'm excited for gated communities built around creators. So like your favorite YouTuber releasing an NFT that's like the key into their house in like with like their 1,000 core fans. Someone who I think has done that really well is NFT God. He's got his 1% Better newsletter. It's not accessed via an NFT, but it's the exact type of thing that could be. He's got a Discord group for anyone that doesn't know. I'm a part of it as well. Like I'm a member of it. And it's like these private ecosystems where like 1,000 people are getting a lot of value, and it's gated by an NFT. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But I really do think we're going to see less and less PFPs launching, and it really, I don't know if you guys feel it, but right now it feels a little bit like survival of the fittest. Like there's just people dropping out every left, right, and center every week, and my goal is to show that we're the ones that are still here, and continue to show up every day.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't looked as much at NFTs or profile pictures as I have like a year ago or a year and a half ago. It's
no one's buying. Even the people in the
definitely
ecosystem.
No. Right.
Like we've been really fortunate. That's why I've been loving what's come through my content. Is people like, look, I don't know what's going on, but I know you and I understand you. I understand the way you think. Like I feel way more comfortable joining into your ecosystem than something that's just pure utility where I don't really know if it's going to get pulled off and it's still several months away. It's like, well, at least with you, I see you like in real time. I get you talk about this thing. This is physical. Like I can see that you made it. Like all these sorts of things really benefit us. But I think for the broader ecosystem, buyer like mindset has completely shifted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And if you talk about like future implications, when I last talked about with you, you made a thread about ERC 4337, I believe. And at this particular time, you just mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, that it seems like what Amazon was doing, it like old news, and this sounds like old news as well. But how important is this to the space? Because when I read your thread, I was like, oh, this is mind blowing. This is the next step. Here we go. But it now it seems like it's all my feed is filled with Arbitrum airdrop threads right now. So. What's the importance of that particular implementation?
It's funny. I think the Amazon thread and that thread were like a couple days apart, and they both feel like ancient history. But
yeah,
I'm really excited by it because I have decentralization or centralization, whichever side people like. It kind of feels like a civil war on Twitter where people think it's one or the other. Okay, so that is my computer blowing up, if anyone just heard that. Yeah, the people always see it as centralized or decentralized. All I care about is user experience, right? Like, you're not going to onboard... I onboarded someone that I live with and helped them buy their first NFT, which was a Bricktopian, and they wrote down their seed phrase, left it on the kitchen bench for a week, then it got thrown out, and now they can't access their wallet. And we think that, like, what do we expect?
Yeah,
like, I can call out that I can call out my housemate and say, "You're an idiot. You got to protect your seed phrase, not your keys, not your wallet." And it's like, no. The reality is, the whole world has been conditioned to certain standards of user experience that are really fundamental to how we use the internet. And if the stakes are that someone can join this thing for the first time, make a mistake, click a bad link, forget their password, and that is it for all their assets, no one's ever going to join this. And so what's really cool about ERC 4337 is we're yet to see, I know there's one wallet that's like testing out a bunch of the features. It's actually like really just the beginning of this innovation in the space, but really the core of it is that a wallet can become a smart contract. So it's like, it's called account abstraction, but it's like rather than you having a wallet, you manage a smart contract, which is your wallet. And all this extra functionality can be programmed into it. And what's really cool is that even things like it can be linked to certain functions in a social media account. And what that means is you could have, there's a couple of use cases that are really exciting. One is that if you wanted to set it up like a regular wallet with a seed phrase, that's fine. But you can also have these things called guardians, which are like, let's say I trust you both, and I could go, I have like maybe, or I trust, who knows?
I wouldn't do that, Alex.
But let's say I trust Coinbase independently. I trust my mum, and I trust like my girlfriend, for example, and three people that would never get together to try to steal my crypto or even know that they are the three keys, right? But I've selected each of them. I could go to Coinbase and say, hey, I forgot my seed phrase. And they're like, yep, cool, no worries. Go and get one extra person from your Guardian network and I'll let you back in. And that's really, really, really cool. Because instantly it's like, bang, still decentralized, but there is a recovery mechanism to actual digital wallets that we haven't had before. The other really cool thing is that there's ways that, and this is going to be the most controversial thing I could ever say in Web3, but there's ways that services can manage your account on your behalf and within limits that you approve. And so what that means is that your Facebook, I'll try and use a less controversial one. Let's say your Twitter account could actually just be your wallet that you use for low risk things, kind of like a checking account. Like you have $100 in there, it's enough gas to like pay for airdrops or whatever it is. And you just naturally use your Twitter account and it is a wallet. But what's actually happening in the background is Twitter is pinging your wallet. It's doing a certain function and it's handling all of that for you. And for services that want to make, I described it as free shipping in the thread. For services that want to make zero gas fee transactions, they can actually pay the gas fee on behalf of the user. So you would not see a gas fee. You would just do it. So if imagine you're a new user, the Nike comes out with their free, I'm going to use Nike again. Nike comes out with their free NFT. You're so excited. You've set up your wallet. You go to the website, you go to Mint, and it says, that'll be 0.001 ETH, please. And you're like, what? I set up the wallet. I did what they told me to do. It's like, no, you need ETH. Wait, so now I have to set up a Coinbase account and I have to buy it and then I have to pay ETH to get the ETH to my wallet. And then I got to go through all that and then I'm going to get my free thing. Nah, too hard. I'm good. But what this means is that Nike could prepay all the gas on your behalf or like have a pool that they pay gas out of. You go there and you still sign the transaction as a fresh wallet. You still get the NFT, you get the free airdrop. All you had to do was just create a wallet and that's it. And that wallet is probably created through some portal. And it's like, wow, so I signed up, I got it instantly and now I own it. And then if you figure out all this Web3 stuff and you create a seed phrase wallet, you get a ledger, you do all that stuff, it's still decentralized ownership. You can move it to that just as easily. It's not like Topshop, which I could never take out of their ecosystem because it's managed by username and password, but it lives in that world. You can still take your NFT and move it to a more decentralized place if you want to. So I'm just really excited about the idea of like frictionless user experience and being able to recover your account without seed phrases being the only way.
Exactly, yeah. Sure. And I think if you get the general population 1 foot in the door in the space, then you can educate them to set up their own self-custody wallets. And I think it's not bad. Basically, they're creating, or you have the ability to create like multi-sig wallets for everyone or for yourself, which is for projects, multi-sig wallets are common practice. So that would be best for personal wallets for new people as well.
Yeah, I would have never gotten into Web3 if it wasn't for Top Shot. And Top Shot, as in like not Web3, I should say, owning NFTs in a meaningful way if it wasn't for Top Shot. And Top Shot let me buy my digital collectibles with a credit card and own it on a platform. And I signed in with a username and password. Yeah. And I could only trade it through their marketplace. And then that, going from that to setting up and buying my first PFP, minting from a website for the first time, doing all those sorts of things, wasn't a massive leap from Top Shot to that, but going from zero to that probably would have felt a little bit more cumbersome, even as someone with an extensive Web3 background.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think everybody can relate to that when first entering the space. It doesn't go like setting up your ledger or different EVMs on your MetaMask, etc. You just go in small steps. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. I think it's important to make it easy for new people to get in. Just it can be very daunting at times for new people. So
yeah. So Alex, say God forbid you're canceled tomorrow and banned from Web3 completely. What would be the top lessons for yourself that you've learned in your journey from until now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The things that can kind of be applied everywhere that I've learned is that in whatever way that you can build it, whether it be skills, an audience, earning money that you can invest into something you're creating, all that matters is creating some form of leverage, because I don't think anyone can really launch a consultancy, a newsletter, a whatever, without some form of firepower underneath them. Even now, people probably who are smaller accounts probably look at my account and think, wow, Alex, if you wanted to, could sell a guide on how to grow on Twitter. I promise you, if I went to sell that it would literally do nothing at this point in time. But I know that if you start to get to 100,000, 110,000, 120,000, that it actually becomes like a little bit of an unfair advantage, like a moat that you've created. And so the advice that I would give to, theoretically, if I'm cancelled in this scenario, that doesn't really work for me. But the parting advice I would give to someone is act ethically and work your way up to create an audience that it's free to create. It just takes sweat. So that's the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone. And yeah, I think that the biggest thing most people are missing is just skills. And I still think I'm missing a lot of skills. There's a lot that I forgive myself a little bit for not having enough time to learn new things, because I think, like, to go back to that idea of leverage, the leverage that I'm building is more like social capital than, like, I guess, intellectual capital or anything like that. But I think that most people, and myself included, have skill gaps that when they close those gaps, they can be superhuman. Like you always hear like Mr. Beast say, like, if you lost everything tomorrow and you had to start fresh, like with $0 and 0 subscribers, how long would it take you to get 1 million followers? And he says 6 months. And that's because he knows how YouTube works. Yeah. He has the knowledge, right? And so when I hear that, it's like the difference between me and Mr. Beast is not some ephemeral, unknown, crazy thing. He's just got the it factor and I don't. It's like, no. He just knows so much more than me, which is really empowering, because it's like, okay, cool. So the difference between me and being where I want to be is not some abstract thing. It's just knowledge. And so I just need to get better. And so that would be my advice for it. If I was on my way out, I'd say to anyone, build an audience and do it the right way. I try to always, I really try to never tear anyone down directly on Twitter. I'd probably say is like a really good piece of feedback. I think everyone has their moments, but for the most part, you want to really just try and be a net positive in the ecosystem and trust the process.
Great advice. So, Alex, we know you're not a dad, but I'm sure you've heard some bad dad jokes in your day, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember any of them? Because we're going to do a little segment called Bad Dad Jokes.
No, my favorite is the classic, which is, Dad, I'm hungry. Hi, hungry, I'm Dad.
Of course. All right. That's pretty good.
All right,
Now,
Ryan, what do you got?
all right. So what we're trying to do with this, though, is basically you got to try to make the other guys laugh, and they got to try not to laugh. All right. So I'm going to tell a joke. You got to try not to laugh, and it's going to be pretty tough because this is a pretty good joke. So, all right. So, why do pirates hate raking leaves? Because they hate yard work. It's so terrible.
I'm an easy audience.
Oh boy. Go
What's
ahead,
yours, Mike?
Give us a better one.
Well, my granddad used to say, as one door closes, another one opens, which is a great quote. He's a lovely guy, but a terrible cabinet maker.
All right, that was a good one.
I didn't even laugh at my own joke.
I got one.
All right.
Oh yeah.
How do you get a country girl's attention? A tractor.
Oh, you got us on that one. That was a good one. Oh boy!
Oh, I actually had one themed for you, Alex. I made a mistake that I thought you were in the UK. Well, actually, you're not.
Yeah,
and
I'm in Australia. It's Melbourne. You've seen the sun progressively come in as we've been on this call,
right?
So you must know this one. Do you know the difference between a crocodile and an alligator?
No.
One you see in a while, and the other you see later.
Wow. All right.
I got
Because
one.
I'm told there are a lot of alligators in Australia.
Wait, Alex has another one. All right, let's hear this one.
What did the police officer say to his belly button? You're under a vest.
You didn't even need a punchline.
I got
actually.
one more. If you guys are all telling them, I got one more. Why did the duck break his bill? He needed some change.
Why?
Because he needed some change.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I had to think.
Enough
I had to
nonsense.
think.
Alex, we always ask our guest before we sign off, what is your top tip to tell our audience of how not to get fucked in crypto?
Don't think you're smarter than you are, because everyone does. So everyone has this a moment where they think they hit on like two things, and they're like, "I've got the juice, I've got it." Like everyone else is dumb, I'm smart. Like that. Like everyone else is losing money, I'm making money. And I think that if you can recognize those moments is probably a better way to put it. it will go a long way, and you will avoid a lot of trouble. The other piece of advice I'd give is you need to have a longer time horizon than we naturally have on Twitter. I as an NFT founder know I play in an environment where people want updates every day, and so I have to lean into that and play into that. But the reality is that any project, any crypto, anything that you've bought into, whatever they're creating is going to take longer than you think it will. It took me, I bought ETH, I think 6 years ago. I didn't sell it until 4 years ago, and that was to fund my project. Until 2 years ago, 4 years later, and that was to fund my project. Rode it through a lot of ups and downs and bought some more in the crypto markets. But the biggest mistakes I ever made actually is that's actually not true, because when my ETH was doing well, at the beginning I thought I was smarter than I was. I was buying back and forth between other coins, and I missed out on a lot of ETH that I could still have today. So I think everyone gets burnt by that first mistake. And so my biggest advice now is buy what you have conviction in, hold it, go on a holiday, and check back in 4 years.
That's great advice. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Alex,
those are good ones.
Yeah, for sure. We know you're a busy man. We really appreciate you spending all this time with us. We had a good time. Good chat.
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to add to this show before we close off?
No, not at all. The only thing I would add is to anyone that's been listening, thank you for coming along to hear my story. My big thing is two things. One, I feel really proud and excited and confident to say that I'm one of the only builders in the space that's showing up every day in public. And if you've been frustrated by the space and feel like lost and like there is no project out there for you, come and join Bricktopians and be a part of what we're building, because we take building very seriously. And then the other thing is, for anyone that's a content creator or an entrepreneur, make sure you sign up to my newsletter. The link's in my bio. Every week I'm sharing direct lessons about how to grow faster on Twitter and build a business of your own in Web3. So yeah, that's the final things to say. And yeah, thank you, Mike and Ryan, for an awesome show. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah,
thank you for the invaluable content, Alex.
Absolutely.
100%.
Alex.
It's been a blast having you, and we hope to have you again.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. See how your
journey's going down the road here. Fantastic.
Yeah, we'll do a follow up. Where are they now?
There we go.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be great.
Awesome, Alex. We keep in touch, and thanks for joining.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Alex.
Mike. Thanks, Ryan. It's been awesome.
Thanks.
The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dad's Gone Crypto or its hosts.